MMA Now, powered by Film On TV Network.
Ryan Shepard with MMA Now here with world famous Herb Dean, UFC referee. Herb, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Brian. Yeah.
So we're used to seeing you all the time, big, huge scenes. We saw you refereeing McGregor Diaz. So what's the difference in being at those big, high energy events and then coming down to the local shows here in Los Angeles?
Well, I think you kind of described it. One, it's a different energy. One, at those type of events, it's a bigger energy. There's a lot of things going on. You know, the world is watching. Sometimes in some of those moments, it gets so loud in there you can't even hear the bell or the clapper. It's really intense. At these, the differences. But the bottom line is we're still refereeing fights all the time, and it's the same sport, and the same things are going on there. That someone has trained, and these moments are the most important moments in their life because each of these wins catapults them to them living their dreams. And I'm balancing that with their safety. And so everyone they're serious fights, but the energy is different. Sometimes I like doing a lot of the smaller fights because I get to see different friends from the local scenes that I've worked with over the years. Also, each local scene has its own individual flair. So I like doing it all. If it's a fight, I want to ref, you know.
So what were your feelings? How did it feel being the referee to do the largest fight in the history of the UFC as far as money goes and the money it pulled in?
Well, that's the thing about the UFC. I've had that moment many times.
Right.
So at the time when they're happening, some of these fights are the largest fight in the history for some reason of it. But that's the incredible thing about the way our sport is growing. It's growing so fast that within the year, something else that will be the biggest, most amazing thing is going to be happening. So it's so hard for me to pick my favorite moment or my biggest moment because they're really doing a great job of growing the sport and giving us moments to look forward to constantly.
Right. Yeah. You took my next question. I was going to ask if you had a favorite, but so looking at the UFC right now, 197 just happened. Didn't have nearly probably the media impact that 196 had, probably because Cormier stepped out kind of close to the end. So can you give us your thoughts on what's going on with McGregor Diaz? Who do you think is going to blink first in this chess match that they're playing with the McGregor's playing with the UFC?
I would feel really silly if I were to try to have an opinion on that. There's a lot of things that are happening behind doors that I am not privy to, a conversation I'm not privy to. I have no idea what's going on. It's above my pay grade.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, about you, 197? What did you think of how the matchup went down between Jones and OSP?
I thought it was interesting. It was a little, it was a little slow. There were some parts where, I don't know, it seemed that he wasn't pulling the trigger on some of the things he normally does. But what was really interesting is how he was able to control how both of the fighters were able to stay in the pocket, but like shut down angles and knowing when they were safe and where they weren't safe, and the tactics of walking people down, and also the way he wrestles, his wrestling was amazing. So I think it was an interesting fight to watch from that point of view. So yeah, I really enjoyed the fight.
So how about a prediction? If they actually get the matchup going again, who are you taking, and do you think they'll be on the 200 card?
See, so this is why I'm really boring to interview as a referee because I don't think a referee should have an opinion on who's going to be winning a fight, who's going to win. If you start having those opinions on who do you think is a better fighter, then you're kind of doing the fighters a disservice. So even though it's hard to do, that's like my meditation. That's my task that I've been given this sacred trust, is to try to develop that frame of mind. So I really try to not to have opinions like that. Sometimes I try to think about which tactic, given that if fighters are in that position, they generally do have the tools to win. They have the tools in their toolbox, and I try to think about, what would he have to do, or what would this guy have to do? But I generally not have a favorite.
Okay. So what does Herb Dean do when he's not refereeing?
Let's see. I have a few little products. Okay, projects I do is sometimes I teach refereeing and judging. I'll be doing that in June, the first weekend in June. I have a product that's being called F2 Fight Formula. It's rehydration that I'm working with some guys. It's been a couple of years in the running, but now it's It's there. So f2fightformula.com for your rehydration and recovery. It's amazing stuff. The UFC buys it from us. Everybody, it's really good. Everyone who uses it loves it. So it's something you would use like Pedialyte or Gatorade or instead of an IV.
Okay. All right. Hey, well, I'm Brian Shepard with MMA Now. Thank you, Herb Dean, for coming out and giving us some of your time. And we look forward to seeing you in the octagon for the UFC.
Okay, thank you very much.